The mighty kingdom of Carthage was a North African Berber nation first established in 814 BC. Now, the Berbers have inhabited North Africa since 10,000 BC and are indigenous to the North African region, sometimes called the Maghreb, which includes modern-day eastern Mauritania, Libya, Western Sahara, Morocco, Algeria, Tunisia, and parts of northern Mali and Niger. Berbers are also referred to as Moors in European historical records and originally adhered to traditional African religions. The word Moor is derived from the Greek word for black, which is Moron. The Berber kingdoms of Libya assisted the Egyptian empire as far back as 1317 BC, when Ramses II incorporated them into his own army. The earliest constructions of the city of Carthage were actually first established in 814 BC by a foreign group called the Phoenicians, which were a seafaring people originally from the area which is modern-day Lebanon and Palestine. The city was under the leadership at this time of an exiled Phoenician princess named Alisar. Thus, a mixture of cultures began to develop within the city, namely Phoenician and African. The population, however, remained largely Libyan. The mixture of African Berbers and Phoenicians eventually simply became known as Carthaginians. By 650 BC, the great city of Carthage became an independent African state. Now, the central city of Carthage was located in one of the most northern parts of Africa, in the area which is modern-day Tunisia. The location of the city of Carthage was on the coast of North Africa, which borders the Mediterranean Sea, and made the city only 350 miles from the island of Sicily in Europe. The nations of Spain, Italy, and Greece were also in very close proximity. Behind the city of Carthage was located the Lake of Tunis, which was another source of water for the city and of fresh fish. The central city was designed as a fortress and had very high walls, which were a total of 23 miles in length, which protected the temples and great buildings that had been constructed. The city had a huge burial ground, marketplaces, temples decorated in gold and marble, restaurants, libraries, a theater, and 4 residential areas. At this time, the only other city of this size in the world was another African city named Alexandria in Egypt. The city of Carthage was known for its enormous wealth and prosperity. By 300 BC, the population of the city of Carthage had grown to over 700,000 people. The trade in African goods across the Saharan trade routes increased the wealth of the city of Carthage, and this was managed by the African Berber population of the kingdom. The city minted gold coins and was a hub for the trade of metals, textiles, and food across the Mediterranean and northern Africa. The merchant ships of Carthage would also sell to the west of Africa, modern-day Nigeria and Senegal, for trade in textiles, metals, and other more exotic West African goods. The city of Carthage was managed by leaders known as suffets, which roughly translates judge or governor, or someone who passes judgment. The suffets were elected each year by a council of elders. Another group known as the 104 were put in charge of military affairs. A court of 100 members was in control of the majority of the affairs of government. In addition, there were powerful and wealthy ruling families who wielded a lot of influence, and it is from these lineages that many of the leadership positions were filled. By 600 BC, because of the competitive nature of trade within the Mediterranean, which included the Carthaginians, the Greeks, and Rome, conflict arose. The First Punic War was a conflict between Carthage in Africa and Rome in Europe. The source of the initial conflict was that Carthage had attempted to set up a garrison on the island of Sicily in the city of Messina. A garrison is a place where troops are stationed to defend a city or fortress. A war between the two great powers began in 264 BC, and a series of battles commenced. The Battle of Cape Agnemus was a naval conflict in 256 BC between the two powers off the coast of Sicily, and is one of the largest naval battles in world history, involving about 350 ships on each side and 300,000 soldiers combined. The sides were almost in equal terms of the military forces deployed for the battle, but the Romans had the upper hand and half of Carthage's fleet was sunk. Later in 255 BC, Rome attacked Africa directly at the siege of Aspis, and this was the first time the war spilled out into African territory. After 23 years of conflict, Rome had lost 700 ships and 50,000 men, but gained more dominance in the Mediterranean than it had previously. A peace treaty was then signed between Carthage and Rome. Later, the legendary African military leader named Hannibal Barca would arise and launch a devastating military campaign against the Roman Empire.